Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, February 29th, 2024, and today we are going to be talking about the Republican parties across the country and how they are facing major problems in a number of battleground states that could ultimately tip the balance in favor of Democrats in this upcoming November election. Now, the New York Times reported on this just a few days ago. I think they released their article somewhere around 5-6 days ago, and it talked about the Republican Party's state party problem, how the national GOP, as much as it is seemingly put together on its bare bones and its statewide parties, doesn't seem to be doing so strongly, especially in the most important states. Now, it starts off by talking about problems ranging from states like Michigan and Florida and Arizona and all across the country where, in again, these super crucial states, the Republican parties just simply cannot get their acts together. And I think it stands to be a larger problem here, where we largely saw the inefficiencies of the Republican Party lead to eventual losses in a number of competitive states and districts in the 2022 midterm elections. But as we look ahead to the 2024 election, everybody is focused on winning the presidential matchup. President Biden versus President Trump, we've known this race before, and yet there seems to be a problem on the GOP side that they simply cannot find a way to have easy resolutions and easy pathways to victory because of their own internal drama. When we take a look at where we are with President Biden's numbers relative to the last election, he is doing significantly worse. At this point in time in 2020, President Biden led Donald Trump by 5.4%. Both presidents now today matched up against each other. Donald Trump now leads Joe Biden by 2 points nationwide, an effective 7-point swing from the election results and the last polls done in 2020. And I think that is just also fundamentally a problem here, that with this 7-point swing, we are still seeing Republicans fail to capture leads in Senate races, leads in House races, and potentially may even lose a number of competitive states that should be easily moving in favor of the Republican Party. Where we are right now in terms of the general election polling data, in terms of President Biden's approval rating, which is hovering around 41%, this would be one of the lowest approval ratings of any president going into a re-election bid, and yet somehow Joe Biden has a very strong chance at victory. And I think a lot of this happens because it's very similar to what did happen in 2022 in many of these states. It wasn't always the state party's fault, but in many instances it was. The state party would often unify behind candidates that Donald Trump endorsed, and as a result, internal divisions sprung up. For instance, in the state of Arizona, a very important governor's race was here. Kari Lake ran against Karen Taylor Robson. That was an important race that Democrats were worried about, Republicans were worried about, and Republicans, largely in direction from what we saw with many state party leaders, again further at the direction of Donald Trump, endorsed Kari Lake only to lose in the general election. And because many of these state parties, it wasn't just Arizona, it was in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Nevada, in many of the competitive races, ultimately backed the candidate that Donald Trump had asked them to. By the end of losing that campaign, it called for a question of realignment. Is Donald Trump the right person for this party? And as a result, the GOP couldn't make a decision. And now that we're back in primary season, it's very evident here that they do want Donald Trump to be representing them at the top of the ticket. Or maybe they realized that there was no way to stop him, so they decided to jump on board. And that was sort of similar to what happened in years past. But again, the fundamental problem isn't that Donald Trump's ideology is on the ballot, it's that that ideology is a losing one. And so it first started in the state of Michigan, when Christina Caramo was elected as party chair, but she was largely, put up into a prominent position of power because she had claimed to have witnessed the election fraud in the 2020 election. She became the election denier that ran the Michigan GOP, and arguably not effectively at all. They lost money. They are broke. She failed to win re-election. She was ousted by the state party. But you know what's happening now? She's refusing to accept the election results because of the fact that she believes it was an unfair election and thus doesn't want to remove herself from the position, and now it's going to court, and now it's taking an even nastier turn. The Michigan GOP now has 2 state party conventions planned for the important state party convention coming up that will determine a huge chunk, the majority of Republican delegates. The national RNC is representing, taking the delegates from the other state party convention than the one Christina Caramo is putting in together. But again, this party division in a very important battleground state simply just cannot be happening. I mean, when you take a look at Michigan, It's 15 electoral votes. It's crucial to both parties that they win in this state in 2024. And if Republicans can't win on the top of the ticket, if they can't get their acts together at the top of the ticket, right? They can't get everything laid out with their groundwork because they're too busy fighting each other. Democrats can swoop in and use that as an opportunity to win in this state. And now it isn't always just internal party divisions. There are often cases where a party may be ineffective because the person leading it, the party chair, has their own scandals and has their own problems. And again, that calls in that question too, who are the people that are vetting these candidates for GOP chair? Are these the people that should be representing the GOP? And how do these people who end up in such poor positions end up being in such powerful ones for statewide GOP parties? And I can't help but think about, for instance, the state of Florida, where the Florida Republican Party chair had to be ousted as party chairman because he was being investigated for sexual assault. Or in the state of Nevada, where the Republican Party chair is one of the prominent people being investigated as being part of the fake elector scheme. Or in the state of Georgia, how the incumbent state party chair refused to run for another term because he was under investigation by the DA there in Fulton County, the same case that might bring down Donald Trump. And in the state of Arizona, after a tape was released of him trying to bribe Kari Lake to drop out of the Senate race because they were worried about her winning the nomination and eventually losing the election, it is all across the country in arguably some of the most important states that these GOP chairmen just cannot get their acts together. And I think that is the fundamental problem here too. That no matter what is happening here, it seems that at every turn, at all of these competitive states, whether it's Michigan or Nevada or Arizona or Georgia or Florida, that the Republican Party chairs here just simply cannot put together a winning coalition, a strong field of candidates, a strong field of leadership for the party leadership in the state. And I think it all is very top heavy, and that I think is going to be something that we could see very serious repercussions for come this November. Because I think it is a two-sided thing. On one end, you have the scandals that will just simply render the party defunct for the time being. Right, you're going to have a lot of party leadership shakeup. You're going to have new people coming in and out. It halts the progress that was being made by the party chair. On the other hand of things, too, it also makes the Republican Party in the state look ineffective and make the congressional candidates, the senatorial candidates, whoever it might be, down ballot, less likely to trust or want to work with these party chairmen. And I think that is also a problem in itself, because more often than not, the state parties have the resources. The question is, do candidates trust the way they are allocating those resources? When the Michigan GOP received a number of complaints about hundreds of thousands of dollars that were arguably just going missing, you saw people up in arms. Major prominent Republicans across the state of Michigan spoke out against the Michigan GOP. And so you found that to be an issue that largely led to the removal of the state GOP chair. But because the state GOP chair is refusing to accept the election results, more and more drama is published in major print. It's being discussed amongst party members. It gives less validity to these party chairs, less validity ultimately to these statewide Republican parties. And I just can't help but thinking that this type of inefficiency is exactly what lost them the elections in the past 3 years. This type of inefficiency is exactly what leads to potential losses, and I think right now it needs to be completely halted. I think the fact that there is such significant scandals popping up all across the country, whether again from Michigan to Florida to Nevada, quite literally multiple parts of this country in multiple swing states, the Republican Party needs to get their act together. And I don't think I need to tell you this too, but when you have an important election like this one, every single thing matters. When I take a look at the states like Michigan, where the GOP chair is losing, their minds there over what's happening there, where you have to have a court enforce a chair election result, and they still refuse to accept it there. Biden won the state by 2.8. It is absolutely within reach for the GOP. The question is, are they competent enough to win there? The question in Nevada is, are they competent enough to win there? In Arizona, in Georgia, all states that President Biden won in the last election, the only one he lost here was Florida. And the GOP needs everything to go correct in order for them to win. because they are responsible, largely besides the Trump campaign's strategy in the state. They are often responsible for voter outreach and voter registration and involvement in campaign rallies, in making people come to these conventions, in ensuring that the delegates get sent to the RNC. There are so many responsibilities of a statewide Republican Party, especially in these states. They are the one consistent body that has existed in these battleground states for year after year after year when campaigns come in and out in presidential and midterm elections, but these state parties have stayed put. And for almost all of them in these states to have a near total leadership collapse because of the scandal amongst the party chairs in Florida and Arizona and Nevada, the investigations that they are under, sexual assault in Florida, election denial in Georgia, right, fake elector scheme in Nevada, all of it is extremely, extremely bad. And when you look too, again, bribery is never a good look within the Arizona GOP. It makes not only the top, high-level party look bad, it makes all the candidates that are associated with it. I think one thing that the Republican Party just simply has not been able to win is the media war. When you talk about House Republicans, people still remember how many chair vote or speaker votes that it took to get to a point where we have Mike Johnson and a point to where we did have Kevin McCarthy. The voting out of speakers for the first time in United States history. History being made, but not in anywhere that is beneficial for the Republican Party. It is point after point after point here that makes these parties seem ineffective and gives Democrats an ample opportunity to swing in where it matters most and do so exceptionally well. I think that's where I'm at. I think I look at this and say, how in the world does it get this bad? How in the world does it get to a point where you have someone in these state parties who simply never passed a vet, very seemingly so, never passed a vet, or did and conducted this behavior while they were in this elected position? You'd like to think that they knew better for themselves. But evidently, that is not the case. And so the GOP has a state party problem. This isn't to say that Democrats don't have problems, but it is to say that the GOP disproportionately has so many more problems. They need time to fix this. They need time to get, everything together, get their ducks in a row, get this problem fixed before the convention hits. Because what I think this is too is just the start of a trend. I remember Michigan had problems last year, and then came in the problems with the probe in Georgia, then came in the investigation happening in Nevada, and then Kari Lake released the tape in Arizona, and then Governor DeSantis called on the Florida GOP chair to resign alongside Senator Rick Scott. It was a consistent thing. And it is absolutely a trend here that the Republican Party just simply did not send their best to party leadership in these battleground states. And as a total culmination of the states I've discussed thus far, being 78 electoral votes in this election, they absolutely matter. And when we take a look at how they have voted in the last election, it is a reminder here that there is a strong opportunity for Donald Trump to make massive gains. But Democrats are going to use these scandals to their advantage. They are going to do what they have been doing, and that when Republicans are at a low point, Democrats push them down more. What Democrats did effectively in 2022 was exploited the weakness of these candidates, the weakness of many of these state party Republicans that I think genuinely thought that a lot of these elections in 2022 would be a cakewalk. Democrats did a lot right. They built out a perfect storm, and a perfect storm comes when you have collapses like this one, where you have a fight amongst convention, location, amongst who's going to the convention, amongst who's, going to be represented, what counts as a convention versus not. Right now, you have plenty of instances where there just seems to be this prevailing problem that Republicans cannot get their acts together, but they need to. We will see what happens in a few months from now. Maybe more state party drama does populate. But if I was a Republican right now, and I was working at the RNC and I was looking at this, I would realize that although Donald Trump might be leading nationwide, this is the avenue at which President Biden wins. It's not as much that Biden and Democrats are winning. It's that Republicans fail to, as they did in 22, as they did in 23, and evidently, based on a lot of what we are seeing now, they may very well fail to do in in 2024. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2024 presidential election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.